Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov, good evening. We are back on a Tuesday night learning Torah. I will tell you the truth, that this Shiur was something unusual for me because I didn't really know what to do with myself today. I had a plan, and the plan was to teach about the halachot of Torah scholars drafting to the Israeli military. I intentionally say Torah scholars and not yeshiva students. Intentional what I'm telling you. And as I was preparing that shiur, I realized a few different things, and that is that it has less to do with you than the world. Most of what we see in the Beit HaMikdash is, if there are two extremes in the world, in this case, let's call it, everybody in the world must draft to the military. That's the only way to serve your country. Option number one. And option number two being, no yeshiva students serve in the military no matter what, because the study of Torah is more important than serving in the military. Then our Chachamim are always going to fall out somewhere in the middle, maybe leaning towards one side or another, but always somewhere in the middle. Even if that middle is a spectrum, they're in the middle. The problem is that when you deal with fanatics, so the middle ground is a dangerous place to be in. Margaret Thatcher once said that the danger of standing in the middle of the road is that you get run over by cars that are driving in both directions. And that's part of the problem with studying the Torah of our Chachamim. In addition to it, I feel that there are conversations that are best to be had when they're theoretical. When there's not a war that's raging right now in our doorway. And so, Od Chazon HaMoed, I figure it's not the right time, not in my opinion, to go through those sources today. There's a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration in all the directions. But suffice it to say the following. All Jewish people are obligated to serve the Jewish people, and all Jewish people are obligated to save the lives of Jewish people. And so in a matter of war, there is no one who is exempt from going to war to save the Jewish people. The question then goes to, what about when it's not a war? Is ever Israel really not in a war? Because Israel seems to be in a perpetual war since 1948, and maybe even earlier. What does it mean when we talk about Torah scholars? Who are those people? How many people? What exemption? What not exemption? What obligation? For me, it's not right now. And I made that decision too late to prepare a shiur in the regular Rambam that we usually would have. And so I thought, what can we learn tonight that is going to be important and useful? And this week there were two Azkarot, two yortzites of Chachamim that passed away that I thought it would be worth zooming in on. I voted over one over the other, but on Monday this week was Azkarah of a famous Reverend Sabato Morais. I don't know if you've heard of him before. I think I might have a picture of him. 1 second. I do.
He was a Spanish portrait of Rabbi
Very good. I show people a lot of things. Not everybody remembers what I show them. This is, I'll hold it for the Zoom camera. This is Rabbi Sabato Morais. If you've been to Yosef Zarnigan's Beit HaKnesset, there's a big portrait of him in the lobby of the Beit HaKnesset. He was called Reverend because that's what they called rabbis in his generation in the world. His Azkarah was this week. He was a very, very unique Talmid Chacham whose life is almost not studied by anyone. Definitely not by people who should know about him. He was one of the early Sephardic rabbinic leaders here in this country. He was anti-slavery. He was a supporter of many good causes here in this country. He was born in Italy. He was supportive of Abraham Lincoln, which got him into a lot of hot water in his generation. He was born in Italy, tried to become a rabbi, not even a rabbi, a teacher in London, but they rejected him because he didn't speak a proper English. He sounded like an immigrant, The British people are quite. So he went back to Italy. Anyways, he was trying to be a Hebrew teacher. So I don't understand why he had to know English, but it doesn't matter. They sent him back, where he perfected his English and came to America, and is responsible for many incredible. If you read his English, you'll never know that he wasn't born and raised in an academic English setting. His English is beautiful. He wrote writings on Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, Rabbi Shimon David Luzzatto. He definitely leaned to the non-Kabbalistic camp of Italian Jewry, and so in that he has some critique of the style of Rabbi Baruch Toledano. Nonetheless, a very, very unique Talmid Chacham. His funeral was the most famous of those huge mega funerals that happened to a rabbi here. And you'd be amazed at how many rabbis, priests, other religious leaders were at his passing. Most significant, he was responsible for the founding of a school that was later taken over. But the school was called the Jewish Theological Seminary. It was his dream to have a moderate rabbinic institution which would create rabbis for the next generation of the Jewish people. Later, that became the flagship institution of the conservative movement. But it started off as a Sephardic yeshiva, like many organizations in this country that started off by Sephardim and then later were taken to a different direction. It might perhaps put in your mind a little bit of why Chacham Faur felt comfortable teaching at the Jewish Theological Seminary, viewing it as an old school Sephardic institution that maybe took a different direction than as what American Ashkenazim saw the Jewish Theological Seminary, and that's really a topic for a different conversation. Nonetheless, it's not he who I came to speak about today, but we'll talk about him when we can. If you would like an article about Rabbi Morais, maybe somebody could text me now, and then after the shiur, I will send out a very interesting article by a professor who's been researching him a lot. I've had some communication with this professor, a very special person. He passed away. Someone will Google this faster than I can tell you. Rabbi Sabato Morais, Morais. I think he passed away in 1897. I think so.
He was the uncle of Professor Baruch,
No. Literal question. One is a first name, one is a last name. His name Sabato is Shabtai. Sabato.
It's his last name?
No, that's his first name. Shabtai.
Shaar.
No, not like Shabtai. 1 second. What did you say? He's from Italy. Yeah, and that's the way they spelled his name. Because Syrians, but the last name there is Sabato. It's different. Maybe something you want to know about him. A fun fact. The Sabato Morais wanted to make sure that the Jews in America would no longer be split on Ashkenazi Sephardic divides. He felt that if we're already in the new country, what's the point of staying Sephardic or Ashkenazi? We've just become Jewish. This is like a long time before other rabbis tried having this conversation. And he had all kinds of ideas how to do that and how to change that and how to edit the Siddur and how to fix this and fix that. And when he finally presented his idea to his Ashkenazi counterparts, they couldn't get around the idea that they would have to give up the way they pray to become one with the Sephardic, Spanish, Portuguese Jews, that they just kicked the idea to the curb. But this was something that he tried very hard in his life. He tried a number of things that I think today you'd say, like, wow, what a visionary. But then I don't know how many people could appreciate who he was and what he was. And that brings me to the Chacham that I hope to speak about tonight. And his name was Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano. You heard of him before? I'll show you a few pictures of him. Yeah, very famous rabbinic dynasty. We did study once the writings of a different Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Toledano, who was the chief rabbi of Tveria. Here you see a picture of Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, and on the side you see a very young Rabbi Shalom Massas, who later will become the chief rabbi of Morocco and afterwards the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. In this picture you see him with the king of Morocco, along with Rabbi Yosef Massas here, and with this is a very grainy picture. It looked better on my computer. With Rabbi Yosef Massas and Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, with a group of bar mitzvah boys that were getting ready to put on tefillin and talit. I know you wanted to draw somebody.
picture again?
Yeah, sure. This is Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano. Right here. Hanan. Sorry. Oh, but that one I have to do a class off the camera. We are Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano is most famously known, probably in the Jewish community, for a song that he wrote. Hanan. Okay, open up your PDF that's in there. Yeah. Someone Googled him. השורר שירה. השורר שירה לכבוד התורה. He wrote the song. Raphael Baruch Toledano was born in the year 1890. He passed away in the 1970s. He's just around the same age as his friend, Rabbi Yosef Messas, who was born in, I think, 1892. One of them was 90, one of them was 92, and also passed away a little bit later than him. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, if you look, I don't know what page to tell you it is in the PDF numbers, but after the table of contents, there is the full version of Ashorer Shira. It looks like this. If you look in that PDF, it will look the page like this. And you'll notice that the version that we sing in the Beit Knesset is maybe 5 or 6 stanzas, whereas the one that's here is much, much longer. Also, some of the words have changed over time. But maybe if I can, just a little pet peeve, people think the song is Ashora Shira. But the song is Ashorer Shira. 2 R's. Ashorer Shira. Right? I will sing the song. Ashorer Shira Nirvod Torah. Now, Mipazikara Zaka Uvara. You'll notice that we sing Zaka Uvara, but in his printed edition, it says Zaka Torah, which is slightly different. Or if you look at the last stanza here, we sing Hatle Shavati She'erinati, but look, it says here Kabel Shavati. We sing Hat, Hey Tet. Listen to my yeah, but we are certain words that I guess over time, and he writes here Shir Chadash, it's a new song. She'asadati lichvod Torah, that I instituted in honor of the Torah, Zeki 30 shana, about 30 years ago. Ukvar nitpashet b'chol hamakomot, and the song became so popular it went everywhere. And then you'll notice that this song it spells out Ani, Baruch, Raphael, Chazak. And it's interesting, first off, for a few reasons. One, it has many acronyms because it's a longer song than his name spells out. His name was not really Raphael. His name was really Baruch. In his younger years, you find his letters are signed Baruch Toledano. Someone take a guess why they called him Raphael Baruch. He got very sick at a certain point in his life, and they added a name. And the name was Raphael. God should heal him. And since he survived that, then he kept the name Raphael Baruch. And I guess at this point in his life, he was still calling himself Baruch Raphael. But either way, Raphael Baruch, Baruch Raphael, this is the same Chacham that we're talking about. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano was a very unique person. And I have to tell you that in the rabbinic community, he's mostly known because of the 4-volume Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We spoke about it in Shiur yesterday, and I figured let's talk about it. This Kitzur Shulchan Aruch was written by Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano to counteract the Ashkenazi one of Rabbi Shlomo Gansfried. And I'll tell you a little bit about his life, and I'll explain to you why he wrote this book. In recent years, they published a 2nd volume, which is letters of Rabbi Raphael Baruch, and it's called The Questions and Answers of Rabbi Baruch, which is a very unoriginal name because he didn't actually ever publish this book. It became a book from the collection of his letters, and I'll tell you about the ulterior motives behind this book in just a minute. But for right now, kind of. That's the best thing that I can tell you is kind of. And so here you have the life of Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano. He was born to a very famous rabbinical family. The Toledano family has many branches to it, but all of them were Chachamim. And he was born in the city of Meknes in Morocco. His father was Rabbi Yaakov Toledano, who was a famous Av Bet Adin, and Rabbi Raphael Baruch later took over for him and became the rabbi there. He was very, very involved in the Jewish community, whether in Morocco, and later when he made Aliyah in 1963 to Israel. Everywhere that he went, he was very much involved in the Jewish community. In fact, his father was one of his teachers, and his father has a letter in which he discusses whether you can convert someone who is dating a Jewish guy, whether you can convert her just to save him from being married to a non-Jewish woman. And he goes back and forth. And he said there a sentence that I always said for years, and I never knew that somebody had said it before me, and I was so happy to see it this afternoon. He said, listen, if you ask me, first we should convert the Jewish guy to Judaism, and then we should convert his girlfriend to Judaism. Because that's really the experience that I have most of the time, is that the girlfriend is not the problem. The problem is the Jewish guy. He's the problem. And if we could teach him about Torah mitzvot, then we could get to her. But first we have an obligation to teach him. And I always tell this to couples. I say, I'll help you as long as he becomes Jewish also. Meaning, he needs to come to the classes. And he needs to learn. And he needs to be here in Bekez on Shabbat. And yeah, that's complicated. Why is it complicated? Very good. He only wants her to be Jewish so his parents won't kill him. But the moment she starts becoming too Jewish, then if that was the case, he would have married a Jewish girl anyways. He didn't want a Jewish girl. He wanted a Jewish girl. And so, very often, they end up breaking up with the girl becoming very religious and the Jewish partner running away from the mountains because he didn't sign up for Shabbat and Kashrut and Tefillin and Mezuzot. That's crazy for him. And that happens a lot. And I always tell couples, like, I'm happy to help, but you have to do it together. If you don't do it together, I promise you she's going to fly and you are going to sink like a stone at the bottom of the ocean. And it's something we see a lot. That was a big controversy in Morocco in those days. Who do you convert? Can you convert? Why? It was a big deal. It was one of the big machlokot that happened there. He was a very tough chacham. He was harsh. He was hard. He was strict with the people. He had a no-nonsense attitude. In fact, if you were going to put him and Rabbi Yosef Masas's friends, really, they were friends that occupied opposite ends of the rabbinic leadership establishment. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano was strict in everything, all the time, everywhere. That was his whole style, was to be machmir. Rabbi Yosef Masas, almost always on the opposite side of the spectrum, was being lenient on things that you would never imagine somebody could be lenient about. This entire book of letters was collected by an organization in Israel called Ahavat Shalom. They have merits. The merit is that they publish many books of Sephardic Chachamim. Their demerits is they often publish things in their own agenda, which is what most organizations do. In this case, a lot of this book is intended to discredit Rabbi Yosef Masas by showing how Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano stuck it to him and showed him that he was wrong. For example, like the matters of the Eruv that Rabbi Yosef Masas was lenient about. There are other such areas that Rabbi Yosef Masas was quite open about. In fact, there's a part here, I should have saved it for you. There was a letter in which Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano tells Rabbi Yosef Masas at the end of the letter, he says, listen, do me a favor. Before you write any more weird things in halakha, just ask your friends first, so you don't say anything unusual in public. Yeah, they were very like that, but they were very good friends. Mamash, they were good friends. You see the way they write to each other. My brother, my beloved one, the king of the Jewish people, the leader of Am, all kinds of nice titles. But at the end of the day, they were very different types of people.
The same community or different communities?
So Rabbi Yosef Masas, they're from the same community, but not, because remember that Rabbi Yosef Masas moved himself to Algeria for a long time in his life. And so even though he's from Morocco, but spends a significant amount of time outside of Morocco, and later, again in Israel, but Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano lives in a different part of Israel, and that's exactly what I'm coming to tell you about now. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano is famous because of almost all the Moroccan rabbis, and almost all the Sephardic rabbis who came to Israel, came out on the very Zionist side of the religious Zionist spectrum. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano came out quite opposite. He was very, very concerned with what he saw happening to the young Jews in Israel at the hands of the Zionist establishment. And even though initially he had hoped to live in the Haifa area, he ended up turning himself around and moving to none other than Bnei Brak, where he lived the rest of his life in very close quarters with some of the Haredi Ashkenazi rabbinic leadership, like the Chazon Ish, like Rav Vosner, like some other famous Chachamim that lived in that generation. He famously aligned himself with the Agudat Israel political party in Israel at the time, which is highly unusual. You have to understand that for a rabbi to be an Av Bedin in Morocco and to come to Israel and identify with Agudat Israel is almost it didn't exist before. On top of all of that, I once got a book of his in the mail. Someone sent me a book of his in the mail. It's an old-fashioned way to send books. I'll tell you how this works. In the olden days, when rabbis used to print books, they wanted to sell their book. How would they sell their book? Who's going to go buy a rabbi's book? What they do is they would mail the book out to people with an envelope. And they would say, now that you got the book, please send back a payment in the envelope. So I got a book like that once. It was writings of Rabbi Raphael Baruch, and it came from, maybe I'm confusing actually, don't listen. Yeah, but in any case, much of his family ended up in Gateshead, in London, Lakewood, New Jersey. You have some of this side of the Moroccan community really became very Haredi. It's part of the history you have to know about. And I'm certain that this also played a role in much of the dynamics that he was part of in his life. Nonetheless, though he may have been more strict and more serious, he was a very warm person. Everybody who knew him describes the way that he would hug and kiss everybody. He welcomed everybody into his house. In fact, him and his wife were known to be quite unusual in their hachnasat ochim. Their door was open almost to everybody. And some people would come for a day, some people would come for a week, some people stayed there for months and even years and didn't leave. They just moved in to the Toledano's house. And his wife was a tzaddiket who, no matter what, with the permission of the guests, she would go into their rooms and do their laundry and make their beds. And she would find out what kind of food they liked and make special dinners for the people who lived in their house. In fact, Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, because he worked for the Moroccan government as the Av Bet Adin, his paycheck came from the government. And they obviously paid him very well, unlike the other rabbis who worked in the Jewish community. Everybody knew when he got his paycheck from the government, because the moment he would come out of his office, there was a line straight out the door of poor people that were waiting to collect from his paycheck. And he would always give away 2/3 of his paycheck. And 1/3 of his paycheck is what he kept for his family. That's what they lived on. There was a man who used to come to his house a lot. He was a Ger Tzedek. He was a convert to Judaism, and he was a very, very intelligent person. He was like from high society people that became Jewish. And Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano loved this person. Was one of his favorite people in the world. Every meal that he had in his house, there was a chair right next to him for this person. And he would, no matter what question this man had asked him, he would spend time to explain to him what the Torah said, the Nevi'im, the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Halacha, all the way down. Would discuss things. They say sometimes he got so involved here in this conversation that everybody else felt like they were secondary. And he really took it seriously that he had a special opportunity. He would tell this man, you gave me an opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah, to love someone who converted to Judaism. He really appreciated this person's company very much. And one time in his meals, he saw that one of his guests was a young Talmid Chacham, and he was very sad, like he was beside himself. What's going on with you? He said, how can I be happy? It was the holiday. He said, how can I be happy on this holiday when I'm coming to the holiday with ripped shoes? I don't even have shoes to wear in the Chag. He said, not a problem. He left his meal. He went to the home of the Jewish man who owned the shoe store. He said, Yana, get up. We're going to go to your store. He said, Rabbi, it's a holiday. We can't go to my store. He said, you're going to give him a free pair of shoes from your store because that's the mitzvah. And he went. The chief rabbi went and opened the store on Shabbat, and they tried on shoes, and then they went back to the holiday, and then they went back to the house. He was a very, very special person. He took it to heart that in his generation, certain movements were turning the Jews in his community to be less religious, especially famously the Alliance school system that came from France. It hurt him a lot to see Jews that didn't keep Shabbat. And he made it his own mission that every Friday afternoon he would walk from store to store to store, helping people close their store for Shabbat. He would help them pack up the things, help them lock the gate, help them close the door. Yeah, it's getting close to Shabbat. That's what he did the whole Shabbat afternoon. In his life, when he traveled from place to place to place, he always looked to see what could he fix somewhere. And there was a... it's okay. And they say he came to a certain village up in the mountains in Morocco that the people were very poor, like a real village. They were very, very poor people. And he saw they didn't even have good clothes to wear. In my car? No. So they didn't have good clothes to wear. Welcome. Came with an entrance. Don't worry. See, I knew it's my car, but it was not me driving. Somebody else driving. And at that time, he decided to go collect money for this village so they would have clothes. The problem was that it was in the middle of the World War, and Morocco was against the law to collect money because everybody was assuming you were funding the enemy. He did it anyways, and he took care of the people in that village, and even many generations later, they remember for him these mitzvot. I'm telling you all of this because overall was a very wholesome chacham, was a very special Talmid Chacham. And when he came to his people, he noticed one thing, that the ignorance of halakha in the Jewish community was horrifying. He could not wrap his head around the fact that so many Jews didn't know anything about Judaism. Basic things. How do you do Shabbat? How do you eat kasher? How do you... simple things. They didn't know. And, come on, we have a chair here. Avinambo, bring one more chair right here. Sit next to Al-Hanan. And Ima will bring a chair right here. Ima, bring one more. And it's for that reason that he saw so many Jewish people that didn't know Torah, didn't know mitzvot, didn't know halakha, that he wrote this Kitzur Shulchan Aruch because he wanted there to be a book that regular people could just go and read and study. The unique thing about this Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is it's not purely a Sephardic book. He collects in it from the Shulchan Aruch, from the Rambam, from the Mishnah Berurah, from the Chaye Adam, from the Magen Avraham, from rabbis of his generation, Ashkenazi rabbis. He collected there from Kabbalists, which were not known so well in Morocco, like the Kaf HaChaim, Yaakov Chaim Sofer. And really, he made a very wholesome collection of halakha. And it's there that I wanted in his memory to maybe study just a little bit. Something from him. We mentioned here in the Shiur. Don't open and close the door, okay? We mentioned here in the Shiur. And I wanted to do that together with you. So if you open the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch PDF, on page 7 in the numbers that are actually in the book, not in the... No, not 7, I mean 5. Look at Halakha Gimel.
5 of the PDF.
No, 5 in the book, whatever that is. No, 5 in the book. It might be page 50 in the PDF. Yeah. Siman Aleph, Dinei Avodat Hashem. Oh, no, 50. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Shekivanti. Page 50 in the PDF numbers. We mentioned here the other day about, someone asked me about the 12 Pesukim. You heard of the 12 Pesukim? And I told them, there are no 12 Pesukim. Because the 12 Pesukim are not all Pesukim. But they were referring to something from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Alav Shalom. 12 sentences, like dogmas, that a person who's part of that movement should know. And they asked, well, we would teach our children. So there are many things. The 10 Commandments, the 30 principles of the Rambam. And perhaps this next part are the mitzvot that a person has to think about all day long. But before that, look in Halakha Gimel. Says Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, Af shera'ui lechol yirei shamayim, la'amod eze sha'ot kodem or hayom. Even though it's proper that every God-fearing person should wake up a few hours before the light comes out, before the sun comes up. B'choref,
Back for just a moment. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm trying to find PDFs that you're reading from. Where is it located?
it was sent out as a separate announcement in the Google Classroom, whichever Google Classroom you used to get here. It should say file for tonight's class or something like that.
I found it. Thank you.
Of course. Af shara'ui. So even though it's proper in the summer or the winter to wake up before the sun rises. Litpalel kevatikin, to wake up and pray properly at dawn. Al kol panim, nonetheless, chov gamur hu lakum sha'a or לפחות חצי שעה קודם התפילה. A person has to wake up an hour, at least half an hour before tefillah starts, whenever tefillah starts. Why? כדי שיוכל להכין עצמו, to prepare himself for lipanot, to go to the restroom. ויהיה גופו נקי, and the body should be clean. ויתבוש בגדיו כי הולך לפני המלך, and to get dressed like you're going to the king. ויתפלל בנקיות ובציבור, and to pray in cleanliness and in the community. There are people that come into the Beit HaKnesset in the morning like they rolled out of bed. The clothes that they wear in bed, the face they wore in bed, the attitude they wore in bed. They come in like, grumpy, sleepy. The person that comes to the Beit HaKnesset ready. It's like you're walking into the most important meeting of your day. It's walking in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's no way you can roll out of bed straight into the most important meeting of your life. You need preparation. I know there are people who think they do that all the time. My wife would do well in the military. They give you 30 seconds to get up and be in war. She could do it. I need at least 30 hours, to get ready from when I wake up till I go somewhere. It's a whole different reality. Just to put on my shoes, then she's already in LA by the time. What?
I can relate. I'm the schlepper that during the holidays comes over in the morning, not ready.
That's me. What can I tell you? You'll notice, I'm going to tell you the truth, even here in the Beit HaKnesset, when we do slichot in the morning, so I come to slichot, and then everyone goes to shacharit, and forgive me, when I tell you now, you're not going to like what I'm going to tell you. I know that nobody judges me favorably. You'll notice always after slichot, we switch to shacharit, I go outside for a few minutes. I can't go from an hour of prayer into another hour. I just can't do it. I can't do another hour of tefillah. I can't do it. I need a break. I need to breathe. I need to think. I need to gather my thoughts. I need to get ready for shacharit. Never in my life have I prayed shacharit 2 minutes after I got out of my bed. I can't do it. I need time to prepare myself. Sometimes I sit in front of my tefillin, just sitting, just to get ready to put on. I got to do tefillin. It's a mitzvah to do. I can't just walk into tefillin. I see these guys putting tefillin on someone in the marathon. He's running a marathon. They put him say Shema Yisrael. How do you do? I don't know how to do tefillin like that. It's important. Everything that you do in life, you should be ready for it. So what do you do? No, that means that I'll be late to every tefillah? No, it means just wake up. Whatever tefillah is, if it's at 9, wake up at 8. Sit down. Get ready. It's okay. It's a normal thing in most Beit Knesset in the world that there are people in the Beit Knesset before tefillah starts. They just sit there. They pray. They study. They think. Meditate. I don't know what they do. They do. They drink coffee. Whatever they do. Now, there's a problem in the morning. The problem in the morning is you're not allowed to learn Torah until you say the blessings of the Torah. You can't study until you say the blessings before studying Torah. In Halakha Dalet, אף על גב שעדיין לא בירך ברכת התורה ואסור לדבר דברי תורה, because you didn't yet say the blessings of the Torah on the way to the Beit HaKnesset, you can't yet speak דברי תורה, מכל מקום מה שיוכל לקיים יקיים, at least do the mitzvot you can do. לכן יפנה מחשבתו לקיים מצוות התלויות בלב. So clear your mind to think about the mitzvot that are the mitzvot that are dependent on your heart. There are mitzvot that don't require action. They don't even require saying anything. They require thinking. ויכול האדם לקיים אותם כל יום. And a person can fulfill these mitzvot every day. בכל רגע, in every moment, במחשבה, just by thinking about them. And if you look in Halakha Hey, אלו הן המצוות התלויות בלב וחיובן תמידי. These are the mitzvot of the heart that are obligated always. ולא ייפסקו מן האדם אפילו רגע, and you cannot stop thinking about these mitzvot even for a moment. וכל זמן וכל רגע שיחשוב בהם כמצוות עשה. In every minute that you think about these mitzvot, you get another biblical mitzvah. ואין קצבה למתן שכרן של מצוות, and there is no limit to how much reward you can get from these 6 mitzvot. And if I were to ask everyone in the room, so what are the 6 constant mitzvot? Exactly, which is why we're having the shiur. So, why am I telling you that this is important? Because I'm sure that the critics will complain that these 6 constant mitzvot only appear for the first time in the Sefer Chinuch. And they later become a big deal among other poskim throughout history. But nonetheless, I don't think that anyone will disagree that these 6 things are important things to think about all day long, regardless of how long ago we came up with them. Look at page 6. The first, La'amin sheyesh Eloha echad ba'olam. To believe that there is one God in the world. Shehimtzi umamtzi kol hanimtzeim mecheftzeo utzono. Who created and continues to sustain all the creations. הנה כל מה שהוא עכשיו, ושהיה, ושיהיה, לעדי עד העולמים, ושהוא הוציאנו ממצרים ונתן לנו את התורה. Everything that you see was created by Kadosh Baruch Hu. You have to know, he took us out of Mitzrayim, he took us out of Egypt, and gave us the Torah. ולא נחשוב שהיה במקרה, not to think that this world came about by accident. אלא בהשגחה פרטית, that it came out with השגחה פרטית. This English word for השגחה פרטית? Divine providence, is that what they call it? כי הוא ברוך הוא, what is it? What is it? כי הוא ברוך הוא משגיח בכל העולמות, because הקדוש ברוך הוא watches over the whole world. וזהו מצוות עשה, this is a biblical commandment, הכתיב, אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, אשר הוצאתיך, I am God who took you out of Egypt, פירושו, תדעו, you must know, ותאמינו and believe, שיש לעולם אלוהה המשגיח, that there is a God in the world who sees everything. Shaar hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim, because I am the same God who took you out of Egypt. I mean, the fact, what's the connection between I am Hashem your God and who took you out of Egypt? I am Hashem your God, that I didn't just create the world and let the world disappear. I created the world and I'm watching you. And when I saw you suffering in Egypt, I took you out because I pay attention to everything that happens in this world. Unlike other people who think that, yeah, there might have been a creator, but the creator doesn't care about what happens in the world. It doesn't matter what happens. The Greeks believe such a thing. So mitzvah number 1, to believe, to know, to think about always, there is one God. What's the opposite of that? Bet, shelo la'amin b'shum elim zulato, not to believe in any other God. Shneimar, like it says, lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim, there should be no other gods before me. Ve'afilu modeh she'akadosh baruch hu sholet b'chol ha'olam. But if a person says, listen, I believe that there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the world, רק שידמה בדעתו שמסר הנהגת העולם למלאך או לכוכב או לאדם. But he says, listen, I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. I know that, but I know that he gave the world to be controlled by a star, or by an angel, or by a person. Rabbi and I once heard a rabbi say, I'm afraid to say it on the camera. It's a rabbi, all of you know. Most of you. He said, the Lubavitcher Rebbe runs the world. Like that. He decides. And he watches it. Who mashgiach? Who? Hashem Yishmo. For sure, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is not happy about that.
Not just one.
Not just one. I know, but I heard one from one that everybody considers to be very important. הרי זה מודה ועקום וחופר בעיקר שהקדוש ברוך הוא על יאמין שהקדוש ברוך הוא בכבודו ועצמו משגיח בכל העולמות. You have to believe that הקדוש ברוך הוא watches everything, all the worlds. ואין למלאך וכוכב שום כוח לעשות דבר בלתי רצונו. And there is no other creature, not a creation, no angel, nothing that has power to do anything that הקדוש ברוך הוא didn't give them. ולכן נקרא אלוהי האלוהים. And that's why he's called Elohei HaElohim, like we've been discussing in the writings of Rabbi Raphael Baruch. Number 3, so we believe in God. We don't believe in other gods. Number 3 is we believe in the oneness of God. Liachado. The unity of God. Shneimar Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel. Adonai, there's God. He's Eloheinu. He's our God. But not only is he our God, he is Adonai Echad. He's one. There's only one. ופירושו, meaning Shema Yisrael, כי אדוני שהיווה הכל ברצונו, the God who made everything in his will, שהוא אלוהינו המשגיח בכל העולמות, who is our God who sees everything and supervises over all the worlds, הוא אדוני אחד, he's one God, בלא שום שיתוף. He doesn't have any partners. שכולם נבראים והוא בורא אותם, because everything else in the world is a creation that is created by the Creator. Anything else that you know of is just another creation. ועניין אמונה זו בשלוש מצוות אלו שיקבע בנפשו שאמת כן הוא, ושאי אפשר בחילוף זה בשום פנים. A person has to accept, this is the fact. By the way, אפילו אם יראה במופת, חותך, להפך, חס ושלום, יאמין שהמופתים הם שקר מוחלט, כמו שכתוב בפרשת ראה. No matter what you see, someone brings you miracles, someone proves to you that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not one. Chas v'shalom, doesn't matter. I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one. V'hemet, I'm skipping a few lines. The truth is מה שקיבלנו מאבותינו. What we received from our forefathers. כי אדם הראשון ראה בחידוש העולם ומסר למתושלח. אדם הראשון saw the world created and he told מתושלח. ומסר הוא לנוח, and he gave to נוח, ונוח לשם, ושם לאברהם, ואברהם ליצחק, ויצחק ליעקב, עד משה רבנו עליו השלום. That's how we believe. From אדם הראשון until משה רבנו. וגם משה רבנו עליו השלום. אני ומשה רבנו לא האמינו בו מחמת המופתים. Nobody believed in him because of the miracles he did, like the Rambam says in Mishnah Torah. אלא מחמת שראו בעיניהם מתן תורה. They saw with their own eyes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah. שדיבר עמהם השם פה אל האוזן. HaKadosh spoke to us in our ears. ושם, במעמד הגדול והקדוש והנורא, שראו כולם עין בעין, יותר מ-60 ריבו גברים, לבד מטף ונשים, כמו שכתוב, אתה הורית לדעת כי אדוני הורים בשמיים ממעל. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah in front of all of the multitudes of Israel. And the Torah, 600,000. According to our rabbis, 3 million people. I'm skipping a few lines. והשלוש מצוות אלו. And these 3 mitzvot. ומכללם להאמין ביציאת מצרים. To believe in the leaving of Egypt. By the way, the whole introduction to be, if you have time and you can read Hebrew, the whole introduction to this book is a 10-page essay on leaving Egypt. It bothers Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano why every single mitzvah we have to say Zecher. How often can you say, oh, you took me out of Egypt, you took me out of Egypt, you took me out of Egypt? Listen, someone does something for you, you tell him thank you. And maybe you tell him thank you every year on the anniversary when he did it to you. But every minute, every hour, every day, every holiday, every kiddush, every time, it's exaggerated, no? Says Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, you don't know then what it means Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Morais, his only kavanah in kiddush, when he said kiddush, the only Zecher, he could say those words so slowly. Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim, all his kavanah. If you understand, what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw a nation that had nothing, that deserved nothing, that was good for nothing, that believed in Avodah Zarah, that was mamash from the lowest places in the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard us. And He cared about us. And He saved us. And He took us. And He chose us. And He gave us the Torah, which is the greatest thing that any human being could ever receive. Us. You would say the whole day, Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's all you would talk about. Because how did people who deserve nothing get the greatest gift in the whole world of the Torah? It's the basis of our whole faith, is Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Peretz, you'd be afraid to go to his Bedin. When people converted with Harav Peretz, he would make them know all the dates of Matan Torah. What happened on the first day of Sivan, and the second day of Sivan, and the third day of Sivan, and the fourth day of Sivan, and the fifth day. Tell me everything leading up to Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah on Shavuot. Every single, I want to know the details. It's the most important thing you're ever going to learn. Once we had a girl with us in the Bedin. Poor lady, I mean, she was crying. She was crying. Because all of those details. Afterwards, our parents gave her a bracha and being hard, you should know this is the. But Matan Torah, I said, how could a person not know all the details of the giving of the Torah? And included in that Torah is our oral Torah. We're not just people who have a written Torah, we have an oral Torah. So far, we have 3 mitzvot. 1, that we have a God. He created the world. He sees everything. 2, there is no other God. Meaning no big gods, no small gods. What do you mean no big gods? Obviously there's no other God, yes? But no small gods. There's nobody else who works for God. There is no other angel, no other messenger, there is no other... But you never find in Jewish history, ever, people worshipping Yeshayahu. Am I wrong? Yeshayahu was greater than any rabbi you know. He actually spoke to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He always spoke to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of the, wow, this guy is a prophet. He speaks to God. Never. Because we know, even the guy who speaks, even the one who saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he tells you, I see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Doesn't matter. You're not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is only one HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the origin, the basis of Judaism. to think that today in our generation, what I'm saying is already, when the tragedy happened in Meron, save us. The people were saying, you know why it happened? Because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was mad at us and he punished them. I'm thinking to myself, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was mad at you and he punished you? Who's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? There's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Which religion do you come from? It doesn't work any other way than that. I'm putting aside whether you should go to Meron. I'm not talking about that. The fact there are people who don't realize yet there is only one God and we don't have any other God, meaning there's nobody else between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, period. Number 3, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one. He's the most one. Everything about him is one. And that brings us to number 4. Because we know that about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lehov HaMakom, to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where does it say that? V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. We say that in Shema Yisrael 3 times a day. Shneimar, like it says, V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'inyan ahava zo. What does it mean to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu? שישים האדם כל מגמתו לאהבת השם יתברך ויעריך בליבו כי כל התענוגים שיש בעולם מאושר ובנים וכבוד הכל אפס ותוהו נגד אהבתו יתברך. All of the things you love in your life, food, cars, vacations, family, money, whatever you like, you have to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu more than all of that. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך בכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. All of those things. וכיצד יגיע האדם לאהבה זו? How can a person love HaKadosh Baruch Hu that much? הוא על ידי התורה. By learning Torah. By learning Torah? You ever learn Torah and you're like, wow, I love this. That's the kind of love you get for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The kind of Torah that makes you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By the way, Rabbeinu Rambam on this mitzvah, V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, he says that a person who loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never rest until he gets everybody around him to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how you show love to somebody. Like if you have a friend, a really good friend, and you have another really good friend, and your whole life you just want your 2 friends to like each other, but they don't like each other. For example, if you have a spouse, and then you have a parent, and the spouse and the parent, they don't like each other. It ever happened to you? Never. Your whole life, your dream is, can't my wife and my mother, my husband and my father, can't they just get along with each other? Why? Because I want the people that I love to love each other. If I love my friends and I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then I cannot sleep at night knowing that there are people in the world who don't love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a mitzvah, to get people in the world to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Halakha number 5. Lira mipnei Hashem. People translate this usually as fear, but it's not fear. Yiram's origin is like to see, awe, to have awe. Awe means when I recognize how incredible something is. To know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore to recognize just how incredible, how majestic He is. And ultimately, Leida ki af she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu ne'elam, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu we don't see Him, מכל מקום רואה מעשינו ומבין מחשבותינו כי הוא בוחן לב ויודע כל תענוגות. But to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees everything. He knows everything. He knows what we do. אם יסתר איש במסתרים ואני לא אראנו, the prophet Yirmiyahu says, can there be a person who will hide from me and I will not see him? Like Yonah the prophet? How can you hide from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What does David say? Ana helech. Where will I go? Where you are not there. I'm going to go to heaven, you're there. I'm going to go to the ocean, you're there. I'm going to go to the earth, you're there. Everywhere you are. And then on page 8. The 6th mitzvah. שלא לטור אחר מחשבות הלב וראיית העיניים. Not to stray, not to be misled by your heart or your eyes. Shneimar, like it says, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם. In the 3rd paragraph of Shema, you should not follow your heart. אמרו חכמינו ז"ל, our rabbis of blessed memory say, אחרי לבבכם זו מינות. Do not follow your heart to believe in avodah zarah. ואחרי עיניכם, and after your eyes, זו זנות. This is forbidden sexual relationships. ובכלל מינות, כל מחשבות זרות שהן הפך דעת התורה. ובכלל זנות, וכל תאוות העולם הזה. Included in avodah zarah are all the things you're not supposed to believe. all the bad things, all the stupid things, all the dumb things, all the things that are not Torah. There are people that what they believe in is not Avodah Zarah, it's just stupid. That's also minut. Believe in the values of the Torah, period. And znut, not just forbidden sexuality, all kinds of things people want and desire and lust after. There are people that their yetzer drags them to all kinds of places. That's also considered znut. Now there's a number 7. I told you 6. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano takes number 7 from a book called Chaye Adam. Chaye Adam, I wanted to mention him yesterday. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me mention him today. Chaye Adam was a famous Ashkenazi rabbi. Rabbi Avraham Danzig, otherwise known as Danziger. Why Danziger? Because he came from Danzig. Rabbi Avraham Danzig was the foremost Ashkenazi posek before the Mishnah Berurah. Before. He wrote a book also, kind of like a kitzur book called Chaye Adam, which means the life of a man. It's all the halachot you need to live your life as a Jewish person. They once asked him why he called his book Chaye Adam. He said, because I don't want them to do to me what they did to the Shulchan Aruch. I said, what do you mean? I don't want them to make a kitzur out of my book, an abridged version. Nobody's going to write a kitzur Chaye Adam, a short life of a man. Nobody's going to try to make their life short. Everyone's going to want a long life. They're going to leave my book alone. And I told you a few years ago I was in Yerushalayim and I went into the bookstore near my in-laws' house, Manny's, and over there I saw a book, Kitzur Chaye Adam. I said, some people they they could have written like something else, like Chaye Adam abridged. I don't know. It had to be Kitzur. Mikusar is the worst. I don't know. Chaye Adam Mikusar. I know it's worse. Chaye Adam was a very special person because he never held a job as a rabbi. He was a business person, and he spent all of his time when he wasn't doing business, learning Torah. In fact, in the introduction to his book of Halakha, he says, I know people are going to whisper about me. They're going to say, what kind of guy wrote this book? He's not even a rabbi. He's just a business person. Is it just that? He says, you don't understand. Everywhere that I go, I take with me books of Torah. And I study, and I study. Even when I don't have time, I make time and I study. Yeah, and it's true. I don't always study as much Torah as I should. He said, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sure when you pay attention to the Torah, even if you don't study her for a day or 2 or 3, if you think about her all day long, she will think about you also. It's a very moving introduction. He writes his book and he says the following. Yikabel al atzmo, you should accept in yourself, bifratut, specifically. Lehov kol echad mi bnei Israel kegufo mamash. To love every person of the people of Israel like himself. K'mo shekatuv, like it says, ve'afta l'reacha kamocha. You should love your fellow like yourself. V'al yidei zeh, ta'aleh tefilato bichlal kol Yisrael v'hayu l'achadim. And that way, when he prays, he's praying along with all the other Jewish people, and they will become one great prayer. This idea finds its source in Arizal. Arizal says that before a person prays, they have to say in themselves, I accept upon myself, mitzvot aseh, the biblical commandment, of loving my fellow like myself. And I love every other Jewish person in the world like they are myself. Think about it like this. There are many diseases that can come to a person. The worst disease of all is when one part of the body is fighting another part of the body. The worst. Imagine if someone told you, Avinoam, imagine if I see you punching your left hand. Everyone, what's wrong with you? Why are you hurting yourself? My left hand hit my right hand, so I'm hitting it back.
No, because sometimes it just hurts when you're trying to do it.
Oh no, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, I see you. Why are you punching? Elchanan, why are you slapping the left side of your face? Because it slapped the right side of my face first. You don't fight with yourself. That's a crazy thing for people to do. If Am Yisrael realized that we're one nation, look now in this war, all of these Jewish people that are trying to sell out the Jewish people, all of them. Doesn't matter if they're American politicians that are Jewish. It doesn't matter if they're Israelis that are riding in Amsterdam against Israel. It doesn't matter if they're Israelis in Israel that are funding terrorism. It doesn't matter. And I say to myself, how pathetic is it that people that are part of one nation think that it's normal for the right hand to wage war against the left hand? The problem, they don't really believe that they're part of the same nation. I know that problem. I I know some cynics here might even say, maybe they're not even part of the same nation. I understand. I hear all of that. But I'm telling you that it's the same way when we fight with Am Yisrael. At the end of the day, how can I expect to go in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu when his other creations I hate? And so I have to figure out a way, when I pray tefillah, to first fulfill the mitzvah, ואהבת לרעך כמוך. The mitzvot אלו שאמרנו, these mitzvot that I said, יכול אדם לקיים אותם בכל רגע. You can fulfill them every moment. וממילא מקיים עוד מצוות עשה. And then you're fulfilling yet an 8th mitzvah. What's the 8th mitzvah? ולדבקה בו. You must cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How are you supposed to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I cannot hold on to him. Where's HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I can grab onto his hand? I can't. If I think about him always, then I'm connected to him always. Rabbi Raphael Baruch Toledano, every night, would go home, go to sleep, and would wake up in the middle of the night, and he would cry over Yerushalayim. In fact, one of the Ashkenazi rabbis who spoke at his funeral said that he was his neighbor. And every night he could hear him crying, mamash tears, crying from his window about the destruction of Yerushalayim. How could it be that we're still in the same situation that we've been for all these years? How could it be? And you think about a person and you say, they said he once came to the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish was a very famous Ashkenazi rabbi. He came from Morocco. Chazon Ish, I don't know how many Moroccans Chazon Ish knew. They brought him to visit the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish was so overwhelmed with him, he walked him all the way outside. Yeah, which was unusual. Chazon Ish was a very big rabbi. Walked him all the way outside. And when he left, he told his students that I felt like Yirat Shamayim was flowing out of this person, was filling the room everywhere that he went. There are people in the world that have fulfilled the mitzvah dovkabo, to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's a very beautiful thing to see. That there are people that all day long, these 6 mitzvot are in their mind. There's one God. There is no avodah zarah. There's unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's Torah. There's mitzvot. He sees what I do. I love him. I fear him. I love his people. Those are people that walk around all day, in a special level of kedusha. I told you about a war. I'll end with a war. For me, sometimes I think about our soldiers that are in battle, and I say, who fulfills the mitzvah more than them? Who more than a person who's willing to risk their life for the Jewish people? It's not just words. Oh, I love you, care about you. It's I love you. It's like when you see the mother covering her children so that she can get hurt before them. That's the kind of love they have. They're willing to go to Lebanon. They're willing to go to Gaza. They're willing to go to Egypt. It doesn't matter. To Iran. It doesn't matter where they're willing to go to cover us. And that kind of love is an incredible level of Avdala Kamocha. And I can say that we should only aspire in all of these mitzvot to do all of them in that same way that they fulfill the mitzvah of Avdala Kamocha. And I bless them. Every day we open our phone so far, we see another 6, another 5, another 4, another 10, another. I can't do it anymore. My wife always tells me, I never realized how beautiful Am Yisrael are. You see their faces, every one of them, how beautiful these people are. And all I can tell you is that we, in the zichuyot that we have, what can we do from here? The zichuyot that will fulfill the first one, the first 6. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see that they do the 7th one perfectly. He should put an end to all of our suffering. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit ready to go back home to Eretz Israel, to build our Beit HaMikdash and our Har HaBayit, to rid the world of all of the enemies of all the people in the world. All of them. Ohavei Adonai Sinura. Those who love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you must hate evil. And once we rid the world of evil, the good people that are left in this world, there are a lot of good people in this world. The good people that are left in this world can continue building a civilization of goodness and kindness and beauty. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit to do that together very soon. Thank you for learning Torah with me tonight.